If you would introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Ian Cole. I'm one of the founders of the MakerFX Foundation, of Maker Faire Orlando, and MakerFX Makerspace in Orlando, Florida.
All right. And what is your passion? What brings you to makerdom?
What brings me to Makerdom? It really started with my boys. I've got two sons, and I wanted them to know the joy of making and creation. I think so much in the world today is consumption and consumerism, and hey, nothing wrong with that, right? I buy stuff too, but I wanted them to know the joy of making things and to know what's possible. Plus, I'm a bit of a tool geek, so often you'll find me actually either researching, purchasing them, repairing them, and then occasionally actually getting to use them. So.
And did you learn any of your skills? Where did you learn some of the skills that you've acquired as a maker?
Sure. I would say I've always made things. I've always enjoyed knowing how things work. I was the kid who got a new remote control car for Christmas, promptly, drove it up and down the street and then took it apart, and then it never worked again. And, I got a lot of crap for it as a kid. Until one day when the family television wasn't working, and I managed to fix it. It was a simple, switch issue in the back of it, but that sort of got me a little bit more leeway. My grandfather was an electrical engineer, and so he bought me one of the Radio Shack, 70-in-1 kits, and it's amazing how many people I talk to who sort of share that background of growing up and learning on those electronic kits. We actually teach here at the Makerspace with a kit that was designed sort of based on the creator remembering those, and I'll show you one in a little bit. But that's the Duino kit and the Duino Junior kit, and we got to meet them at a Maker Faire, and then have seen them at Maker Faire Orlando the last few years, and we enjoy teaching with their kits. But it was fun to talk to him and sort of have that nostalgia for that box that sort of pre-internet kept us entertained as we learned the basics of electronics.
So, are electronics the focus of makerdom in this area, or what makes a maker a maker?
I think having produced a Maker Faire for a number of years now, we really focus on being as diverse and inclusive as possible, right? So I tend to believe that everyone is a maker, and whether you enjoy making food or crocheting or, electronics and 3D printers. But I think, unfortunately, sometimes people sort of take that narrow categorization of looking at sort of mechanical and electrical engineers. But hell, the last few weeks, I've been focused on, restoring a 20-year-old embroidery machine, right? And we've got a number of people here who are excited of learning how that works and the design process of it. We teach sewing here. We teach a number of different, whether it's crafts or tool-based skills. Software development is also a form of making. So electronics is just one aspect. In this area, because we are located very close to Disney, Universal, the theme parks, one theory we had when we were planning this space is that we would see a lot more props and cosplay people, because we believe that either the props and cosplay people were sort of already working for the theme parks, or perhaps they were drawn to the theme parks, and that's been very true. So the local R2 builders meet here once a month. We see the 501st here quite often. There's been a number of props folks in. I imagine as MegaCon approaches in a couple months, we'll see a lot more folks in here working on their cosplay projects. So it's a pretty diverse group, and again, still always working on adding new skills and new tools to the community.
And if somebody were interested in joining a space like this, but were maybe a little intimidated by the atmosphere of geekdom, maybe, what kind of assurances or advice would you give somebody who maybe is curious but a little intimidated?
I think most spaces, and I don't know that I'll speak specifically for this space, and I've been part of a few. Um, I think most spaces have an open house or an open night of some kind. And what I always tell people who aren't sure is, come out and hang out with us, whether it's for 10 minutes or an hour. And I think when you get into a space, you can pretty quickly pick up on the culture. And is that space welcoming? Do people talk to you when they come in? And generally, we'll see someone. Our Friday night is our open make night, and so we welcome people out. And usually it's us just hanging out after work on a Friday night, and we'll talk to the folks that come in. And a lot of times they're asking us questions. What is this? What is that? How do I become a member? But I try to always ask what people make themselves. And it's interesting because some people are very quick to say, "Oh, I'm into, X or Y," whereas others are like, "I don't know, but I'm just curious and interested." And then I'll usually suggest to them, "Hey, take some of the intro classes, see what piques your interest. Use the makerspace experience or a trip to a maker fair to just expose yourself to a lot of different topics and see what clicks for you."
Yeah, one of the things I've heard a lot from people when I've given them tours of our space is, "Oh, this is all very neat, but I'm not a maker." How do you respond to that?
Well, I don't think you can convince somebody that they are something they're not. So I think trying to sort of argue to someone that they are something when they've already sort of been prepared to self-label is interesting. I try to understand. Okay, then why are they there in the first place, right? If they took the step to come out, they must be interested, or maybe they came with a friend, but there must be some need they're looking to have met. So either maybe they're not sort of a self-labeled maker, but maybe they're a learner, maybe they're a reader, maybe there's something. And so usually I'll ask kind of what they're into, and a lot of times you can back them into saying, well, actually, yeah, I do make this or I make that. But I think a lot of times it's a self-confidence thing, and it's not that they don't make things, it's that they somehow have this bar, and they don't feel like they've met the bar yet. And, storytelling can be good for that, right? So I have absolutely plenty of stories I can tell you about screwing up on projects on a very regular basis. And so I think if we all help everybody understand that, we do this not because we're damn good at it. We do it because we're all getting better at it, and I think that's an important thing to remember. That's why a lot of people are in a community like this, is to learn from each other.
Right, that's a good. That's one of those ones I always struggle with, is the people come in and I'm not trying to convince them they're something they're not, but it's always that sense that they have this illusion that they're walking among brilliant engineers, and these people are hobbyists.
You familiar with EpiBird, the Diet Coke and Mentos guys?
Yes.
They do a talk, and I'm gonna butcher it, but I think it's like 100, 500, and the idea is that when you see that awesome thing on YouTube, it's not the first one that somebody did, right? What you're seeing is maybe the 500th, and they show how when they prototype something, they showed the first time they tried it, which was kind of loosely a proof of concept, and they were like, that could be cool. And then they show a bunch of failures, because that's what's in between, but that failure is learning. And I mentioned this embroidery machine I've been working on. I could get frustrated every time the thread breaks, but instead I can say, hey, this is this is me getting closer to, understanding it. I bought a bunch of screen printing equipment 2 years ago, and we bought it a few months before Maker Faire, and everyone thought it was funny, but I said, okay, I now need to make every mistake possible between now and the fair so that I don't screw up at the event. And that's what you do. You just keep trying new things, and you keep figuring out, what it's going to take to get good at it. But nobody starts out good. We've also taken some of our more famous failures, and we haven't hung them on the wall yet. We're saving a few. But one of the things I built was a Raspberry Pi powered pinball machine, and I built all the electronics from the ground up. And so I have Arduino controlling solenoids, And I had, but before I did that, I actually had the Pi directly controlling the solenoids. I was used to writing a lot of microcontroller code. Well, when you take the power, when your program stops running on a microcontroller, it's off, right? But on the Pi, what I forgot was I killed my program, but the pin was still high. And so I had that solenoid still powered up. Well, I was all excited because I had just got the solenoids to all activate. And I walked outside, and a minute later I heard a big boom and looked over, and there was a bunch of smoke because my Python code, when I had terminated it, well, the Pi was still on, so the pin was still high, the solenoid was still active. And so then I realized, okay, probably not the best thing to do. And so when I took the pinball machine to Maker Faire, I would always take that smoked, burnt solenoid as a way to talk about, hey, this is what happened along the way. And that's a big part of, so we produce Maker Faire Orlando, and that's a big part of when we talk to people about how to set up their exhibit. We say, hey, bring your failures, bring your work in progress, bring your half-finished things. Something doesn't print right on the 3D printer, I keep the half-finished print, because now you can see the infill, now you can see how it looks inside, right? I think everyone curates a very perfect external persona, right? We show the successes. We could probably do a better job of showing the things that didn't work out so well, and it would help those people who aren't quite confident yet.
Alrighty, so as I go to other makerspaces, are there any things you're curious to hear about?
Let's see. Things I'm curious to hear about from other makerspaces. I was the treasurer of Familab, which is on the north side of town here in Orlando for a couple years. And then we started this space on the south side of town. And so I end up in sort of a lot of the organizational pieces of it. So I look at a space as sort of a machine that has all of its inner workings as well. And it's always interesting to me. I think the biggest thing I'm curious about is how people prevent burnout in a space, because there are generally a few people within a space who are carrying most of the load. And that could be a pretty dangerous situation for the sustainability of the space long term. So I usually, when I'm talking to other spaces, sort of ask, how do they do that? Is it a good rotation? How do they deal with succession planning? How do they keep themselves engaged and excited? What do they do to renew their own energy? For us, because we are also the team that produces Maker Faire Orlando, this time of year, because it's January, we're all pretty relaxed and chill, right? You get to September, October, right before our fair, we're a little high strung and a little tense, but then we get to have that big burst of energy that comes from the fair. We get to see all the great photos and videos, and there's a lot of renewal that happens there. So that's a good thing for us. And so sometimes, I think it was Matt Stoltz did a presentation at we had a Makerspace organizers meeting at the White House towards the end of the Obama administration, and he had a presentation that was, I don't remember exactly what it was called, but it was sort of a go big or go home, right? And it talked about how sometimes as a space you have to do big things to have that big moment of, wow, this is awesome. And that's how you get that renewal energy. And so that's what I'm always interested in. How do people keep themselves going through all the work and the occasional drama that comes in communities?
Alrighty, and is there anything I haven't covered thus far about some of this that specifically you and what you do that you think needs to be said?
Are you aware of Nation of Makers? Nation of Makers is a nonprofit organization, right? So there's really three sort of populations out there, right? You've got all your community organized maker spaces, and then you've got your spaces and your organization. So whether it's school maker spaces or libraries or museums or science center spaces, you've got other organizations, and you've also got all your maker events. And what Nation of Makers aims to do is be the meta organization that can provide input and share information across, as well as to interface with government and others where it's appropriate. So I would say check out nationofmakers.us, and I think as people think about makerspaces, we're all still learning a lot of the same lessons every day. And what excites me is when I have a challenge. One of the reasons I joined a makerspace is when I'm working on a project and I have a challenge, there's people around me that can help. And what's great about Nation of Makers is now there's a community of, whether it's event organizers or institutions or makerspace organizers, that we can ask that question. Hey, how are you dealing with insurance? Right? How are you dealing with member storage? How are you dealing with, any of these topics? And there's a community of people there that can help. So I think too often makerspaces feel like they have to do everything themselves. It's unfortunately kind of the maker way sometimes. But there is a good community out there of people that can help, and we can connect you via Nation of Makers for those that need to be connected.